Welcome to the Birdhouse Dynasty show. And today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new Dynasty Bestball Superflex IDP startup draft. That was a mouthful, right, Matt? Ooh, we
Yes,
got
it is.
Matt
And you
English in the
forgot
house.
tight end premium. You forgot tight end
And
premium as well.
tight end premium, yes, half point tight end premium. Not too drastic there. But there is also a 0.25 per carry in this league to boost the running backs up a little and the running quarterbacks. So we'll discuss that all as we wind our way through the draft board. Today, we're brought to you by Choice Sports Cards, your number one choice in buying and selling sports cards. Go check out Kyle and the boys over on Whatnot for all your sports cards needs. Now, we did get to pick our selections, our draft spots in this one. We let Sleeper run the randomizer 3 times, and then we took those slots and allowed people to pick where they wanted to draft in the first round. And we had a 3rd round reversal in this. So I believe the first guy took did he take the 102 or did he take the 112? I forget.
First guy up.
Those were the first 2. I think those were the first 2 spots.
The first 2 spots. Well, I was the second selection. We have Reg Mill 2-incher. He had the first selection and he went with the 5 spot. I went with the 10.
Okay. You went with the 10. Then I believe the 102 went. Then the end of the turn went the 112 because I had the 5th or 6th pick, and 101 was still sitting there, and the 102 was gone already, and I had picked at the back end of the first round so much in these startups this offseason that I was finally like, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna I want Josh Allen in one of these.
Yeah.
And so I just went with the 101, and I wanted to see what my team would turn out picking from the front of the first round and getting, so to speak, penalized by the 3rd round reversal, see how my team could turn out going that route. Now, oddly enough, with what I found with the draft room, how it's set up with that 0.25 per carry that we added in here, it really mixed up the board, wouldn't you say, Matt? If you compare it to some of the other draft rooms that we've seen.
Yes. Yeah. So when you really take into account that point per carry value, right, we're seeing running backs go at a much higher rate than we would normally see in a dynasty startup. You're also seeing those quarterbacks that give you that rushing upside. Those guys tend to go a lot quicker, and quarterbacks coming off the board in a super flex league, maybe not as quick, but you are seeing those dual threat quarterbacks that they come off immediately. And there's tons of value in that with that point per carry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we are in round 10 right now. And so teams are definitely starting to take shape, and we can see which directions owners have decided to go. And we'll discuss some of the individual teams in a little bit later, maybe. But to start with, we're just going to go through it kind of round by round and weave our way around the draft board and see how some of these selections have gone. So if we start right up at the top, of course, like I said, I had the first pick and I took Allen. Generally it's usually Allen or Mahomes. And I've got Mahomes in a few dynasty leagues already. I think 3 of them. And I only have Allen in one other league. And personally, I just find it much easier to root for Josh Allen. So I don't like the favoritism by the refs. So, whatever. I like Josh Allen. I went 101 with him. Then next up,
Kansas City fatigue.
Absolutely, Matt. It's painful to try and cheer for them at all whatsoever. Other than having Kelsey on some teams, it's really hard to cheer for any of those guys.
Yeah.
I gotta say. But as we see with the second pick, we also found a guy who isn't a Mahomes fan, and he went CJ Stroud. Now, can you shed a little light on that pick, maybe?
I mean,
I know you're in Houston, so is he
right.
also somebody that lives near you in Houston?
Yes, he's a native, or I shouldn't say native, but he is a Houstonian. So maybe there's a little bit of homer factored in there. But I mean, look, this is a dynasty startup. He's a second-year quarterback who didn't just flash in his rookie year. He crashed. He crashed the league with his performance, his statistical output. I mean, what a pleasant surprise in reality for the Houston Texans. But for those of us, myself not included, who were fortunate to draft him last year at a much discounted value, to have him on your roster, be able to grab him here. I mean, look, evaluation wise, he's fourth in value if you're looking at KTC. And then in my rankings, I mean, I have him number 4 as well. So it's not really that much of a stretch. And if you don't like Mahomes, I could settle with Stroud. I wouldn't be too upset about that.
Yeah, no, it was just a case of going and getting your guy. I mean, I get it. He likes Stroud. Fine. You know, it's not like he was taking Deshaun Watson here at the round. So,
yeah.
But so then we had inadmissible picking at the third one. And I know that seeing that Stroud went second, I was like, well, maybe these guys will let me get Mahomes and Allen. So I did offer something to inadmissible, which he debated for a little bit and then declined. But then he took a little extra longer. We were getting a little frustrated, all of us, I think, because it seemed like such an easy pick.
About 3 hours on the number 3 pick.
But we're doing this draft untimed. It is 3 months before the season starts. There's a reason we're doing it untimed, so we give us time to negotiate deals and whatever, discuss it in forums like this, and have fun ultimately. So yeah, I love the I love the camaraderie that develops in the chat room during a draft. It helps the league come together a little. I mean, other than you and I am Havdi at the very end, I literally know none of these guys personally. I've been in a league with Krakauer before. I've been in a league with Reggie Miller's 2-incher as well. But you know, so these other guys I'm just getting to know. And People's Champs as well. Yes.
Well, I
so
got
I'm getting to know the other guys.
Sorry, but I do have inside information. They were absolutely they chose the 3 spot because they wanted Stroud. And when Stroud went, they quite literally were just completely thrown off by that. This is a dual managed team, and one of the owners of this team was at work, and the other one didn't want to make any sort of assumptions until. So I mean, it was a perfect storm of variables to cause a 3-hour delay on that third pick. But you know, people like myself, Rom, and Blake, you know, when we're sitting up, you know, getting together to have fun with the first round, maybe 2 if we're lucky, we're sitting there like, really, is this what's going to happen tonight? So
right.
Oh well.
Regardless of the somewhat unfortunate start there, we did rattle off a good 5 rounds the next day. So
that's true. Yes,
it went well. It's been going pretty smoothly since then, considering yesterday was Monday, start of the work week for everyone. And that is absolutely why we do slow drafts for these. And again, it's 2 months before the Hall of Fame game. You know, what are we in a hurry for? You know, as soon as this one's done, we're just going to be looking forward to the next one, whenever it is. So, I mean,
I got about 3.
We're rolling at a we're rolling at a good pace now. I like it. So, all right. So, inadmissible ended up getting Mahomes then at 3, and then after that, B Wyke is his first name. Begin with a B
Blake.
and his last name. Blake. Okay.
Yep.
Blake went with Jalen Hurts, who I would have as my third guy. I have him slightly ahead of Stroud, especially in a format like this with the 0.25 per carry. I would take Hurts over Stroud, but I understand Stroud being excited about him with his youth. I mean, he's what, 4 or 5 years younger than Allen and Mahomes. So
weapons
can't argue. You can't argue the fact of a guy's age. All right.
I had Hurts at 3. I had Hurts at 3 as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the first 4, nothing too crazy there. But then at the fifth pick, we saw Christian McCaffrey go. Now this makes things interesting. Okay. We did mention that again, this is 0.25 per carry. All right. And last year in this format, McCaffrey put up about 405 points, I believe it was. And so Josh Allen had like 450, I think it was. And Hurts was somewhere in between them at like 425, 426, I think, when I looked at it before the draft. So McCaffrey was, like I said, the third highest scoring player in this format. But of course, McCaffrey is the same age as Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and he plays running back. So generally in most startups, McCaffrey goes back into the second, early third, right, to a team that is looking to build a win now team. They want to come in and try and steal it in the first year. Now, Tim here going McCaffrey at the 105, little bit of a reach still in my opinion, but again, like I was talking to you, Matt, before we started the podcast, there's a warp tool on a free site I use. It's called Dynasty Daddy. Very useful for all Dynasty owners. You can just type in your sleeper username and it will pop up all of your leagues you're involved in and give you a nice breakdown of the league, the teams where they sit value-wise, so you can compare yourself to the other teams in the league. See which positions it ranks it out by position. So like has the best quarterback room, who has the best running back room, wide receiver room, and tight end room. And I don't necessarily just use it to see where I rank in the league, but I also use it to see who I can possibly trade with, right? So like if I'm strong at wide receiver, all right, but I'm looking for help at running back, I can look at this Dynasty Daddy tool and see who's really weak at wide receiver, and maybe they're stronger at running back. So then that makes a perfect marriage for a trade, and that's how you want to do trades in Dynasty, right, Matt?
That's it. And in fact, perfect timing for that example too, because you would be looking for a team like Tim's to possibly do a deal with. Let's see here. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. His top receivers, DK Metcalf, followed by Amari Cooper. So, yeah, that would be a team that would be a great trade partner for you.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I use this tool for. Now, there's also a little function button in the top left-hand corner if you're on Dynasty Daddy that brings out other little tools for you to use, and one of them is called the warp tool. And the warp tool is similar to the WAR value that you've heard for years in baseball. Basically, wins over replacement is what warp is, WORP. And it shows literally how many wins a certain player gives you, all right, just as an individual. And Christian McCaffrey, based off of last year and this year's projections, was at a 2.0 WAR, all right? And just for comparison, the next highest player, which was a quarterback, it was Josh Allen. He was 1.5, and then Jalen Hurts was right behind him at like 1.47, right? And then so on down, and most of the next guys were quarterbacks, all right? But the running back line, as you look at the graph, slowly taper off. The running back line did stay slightly above the wide receivers for a little while, and then they started to gradually even out. Okay. So you can see that the 0.25 per carry does correlate to a little more value, so to say, in regards to, I mean, the ultimate tool would then to take that and blend it in with like our keep trade cut values or whatever calculator you want to use. That would be kind of the ultimate tool, I guess, to use, and then try and find some algorithm based formula to create a perfect draft board, I guess. But again, we're dealing with humans here and emotions, and in the end, we're here to have fun too. So like, I like to win, but I want to have fun doing it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And this is most of the fun for us Dynasty guys. This is the best time of the year right now, is doing the drafts and potentially jockeying and maneuvering for some deals to get your roster shaped the way you want for this upcoming year. So this is the real fun time. At least if you're like me, and this is I love this. I love this season.
I am the same way. Yes. There's nothing like a dynasty startup.
Oh,
no.
It's addictive. It certainly is.
Then, all right. So after McCaffrey, then we had a nice little run of wide receivers here. Basically, pretty much the consensus top 4 wide receivers in Dynasty went right after that. CD, Justin Jefferson, Chase, and Amon-Ra. You can pretty much rank these guys in any order that you want. I mean, I wouldn't say Amon-Ra would be over the other 3, but Amon-Ra definitely belongs in the top 5. I mean, you can throw Marvin Harrison into the mix as well now, with his youth being a few years younger than these other guys. But these other guys aren't old either by any stretch. Right. And Marv has yet to do it actually on the NFL field. But we all anticipate good things from Marv. So then after Amon-Ra, you got your first choice, Matt. Why don't you
sure
discuss why you went Lamar at the 10?
Honestly, I had a kind of an idea like you. You wanted Josh Allen. That's why you chose the 1 spot. I actually wanted to get Anthony Richardson here, which is why I chose the 10th. But the McCaffrey pick kind of threw everything off and allowed Lamar Jackson to fall to me. Now, Lamar Jackson's a few years older. That being said, I've actually seen Lamar play for a few years. I've only seen Anthony Richardson play 2 complete games in the NFL. So, I got to be smart here. So I take Lamar Jackson and go with my gut. Not to mention, I do like the available stacks to go with Lamar Jackson, right?
Yes.
So keep that in mind. And again, and I'm a big value guy. I have Lamar ranked 5th, and I got him at 10th. So that's tremendous.
Yes, it's a classic example of pivoting when the value presents itself. Yeah. I mean, you came into the draft with the idea of getting Anthony Richardson. Now you ended up with what we all hope Anthony Richardson will become is Lamar Jackson, essentially. Now, Richardson has a bigger cannon, I would say. Like, Richardson has more of a ceiling of like Cam Newton, I would say, because he's got the bigger arm. But they're very similar players if we really want to just keep it general. They are very similar. And like you said, we've seen Lamar Jackson do it for 4 or 5 years now. Anthony Richardson has yet to truly prove himself on the field. But I think from what we did see in those 2 games, he definitely is NFL ready. I do anticipate good things from Richardson. Now, I'm sure you were hoping to maybe sneak Richardson on the way back, but unfortunately, honestly, that didn't happen.
Yeah, I was going to go quarterback. I said, fine, I'll do Lamar and I'll do AR if possible. But, looking in that 12 spot, knowing Hovde's back there, he's a good player. I figured when I saw Anthony Richardson go, I was like, he's going to draft Marv right behind it. And he sure did.
And he did.
So it forced me to pivot yet again. So, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
Yes. So we saw Bijan go at the 111 again with the 0.25, the running backs. We had 2 running backs there now go in the first round. And then Ryan was up, Mr. Hovde there at the turn, and he grabbed your guy, A-Rich, and then Marv, 5th wide receiver off the board. And right after that, we had Tyreek Hill go. Now, when I was talking about the warp tool, in many leagues that wouldn't have this 0.25 per carry, Tyreek was actually one of the top 3 or 4 guys in WARP last year with his amazing season. And so if you're drafting Tyreek, again, maybe you're building more towards a little bit of a win now situation. We all know, we've heard Tyreek say that he's only playing 2 more seasons, but then at the same time, we hear him now wanting to maybe extend his contract. So I think we might get more than just 2 seasons out of Tyreek.
Barring injury.
Barring injury, of course. Yes. Maybe even injury to his quarterback, Tua. Who knows? But then, so then you were up at the 203. Why don't you discuss what you decided to do there?
Right. So Marvin Harrison wasn't on the board. It's the other reason I chose the 10th spot. But once he wasn't there, looking at what was available to me and how I kind of wanted this team to look, I traded back. I wanted to trade a little bit further back, but I did find a bite with Rom, the People's Champ. I moved back a couple of spots and took another young receiver in Malik Neighbors, who I'm still very, very high on. I think he has the opportunity to be a wide receiver, a higher end wide receiver 2 in year 1, which
absolutely, yeah.
Based off what's already gone off the board, I love that. So, yeah, and I've got him for years to come as long as I want him. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard this offseason all about a few scouts, how they actually had Neighbors ahead of Marvin Harrison. Neighbors is going into an ideal situation to gobble up tons of targets right off the rip. I mean, who cares if it's Daniel Jones thrown to him? When it's a good receiver catches the ball from whoever it is.
Oh, yes.
I mean, even Garrett Wilson last year was able to remain relevant with the putrid Jets situation that they had and at quarterback after Rodgers got hurt. And so you can go through history. I mean, Calvin Johnson produced for a couple of years before Matthew Stafford came into town. He was catching balls from, I can't even remember their names right now.
How about DeAndre Hopkins in Houston? Just pick a quarterback.
Hopkins in Houston.
That dude was still a wide receiver 1.
Absolutely. So I expect nothing different from Malik Neighbors right off the get-go. And maybe he helps resurrect Daniel Jones' career. Who knows?
It's the first real receiver they put around him that they drafted. So, yeah, I mean, I've been watching some of the tapes coming out of OTAs. He looks fantastic. It doesn't matter who's throwing the ball, whether it's Locke or Daniels. He looks fantastic. That said, so I moved back 2 spots in a pick swap. We swapped 2nd and 4th. He moved up to Burrow. I moved back to Neighbors, and then we swapped 4th round picks. So I would be picking a little bit earlier in the 4th.
In the 4th.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect, again, we talked about perfect trade partners there. You know, People's Champ, he got Chase in the 1st round, so he was able to start right off with probably the top stack you can acquire early on here in Chase and Burrow. I mean, you can argue Dak and CD, I guess, too.
We'll see that in a little bit.
Yes, we'll see that in a little bit here. And so we had Jahmyr Gibbs go right in between those 2 picks. After that, we had another running back, Breece Hall, go. So we had 4 running backs go in the 1st round and a half.
Yeah.
And got to say, this is the first draft I've had that many running backs go in the 1st round and a half. But again, when you add in that point per carry, 0.25 per carry, it does make a difference, and players adjusted here accordingly. Next up, we had AJ Brown go. So Krakauer started off with the double wide receiver build. And after him went Caleb Williams. So Caleb was actually the 3rd rookie selected in this draft. But good value there for Reggie Miller's 2-incher. Then it was Blake. with Puka, then we had Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and then it came back to me, and I had a choice here. I was sitting back just waiting. Once it got to after Puka got taken, I knew I was just going to be able to hold my spot because I wanted either Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, or Justin Herbert with my selection. That's how I was looking at it. And fortunate, I mean, none of those three got taken. So I had my choice then.
Right.
And by having the choice of it, being that this is best ball, I decided to go with Jordan Love. Now, I know Love is definitely less proven of an asset than Kyler and Herbert are, but we all know the trajectory that Jordan Love showed over the second half of last season. He's definitely on the up and up. And then you've got all of his stacking options. He's in a situation where he has no true number one receiver. So this is pretty ideal for best ball because I've got just a laundry list of guys that I can grab whenever they fall to me. I don't have to go out and try and reach for a stack option with Jordan Love. You know, there's Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, the two tight ends, all six of those guys. I'll be happy with any of them when they fall in my lap.
That's
I
right.
don't have to go like with Kyler. You know, all we know that Kyler has is Marv
And Trey McBride. That's right.
We don't know, is Michael Wilson gonna be the number two? Probably, but you know, he's got other guys there, but the other guys aren't really exciting either. I mean, Greg Dortch and whoever else is in the room now there in Arizona. I can't think of them off the top of my head. I think they signed some other veteran. Zay Jones, yes.
Zay Jones,
They
right.
traded for Zay Jones. That's who I was thinking of. But you know, they're not as exciting as the young up and coming guys that the Packers have. Like, and who knows with the Packers, I could get lucky and the one or two guys that I do get end up developing more so than the others. I don't know. They're all young. They're all on their rookie contracts. I mean, it's hard to say.
Shoot, we're in a league where we've got a league mate who's got every receiver for Green Bay. He's got Watson, Dobbs, Wicks, and who am I leaving out there? He's got one more.
Watson.
I said Watson first.
Oh, Dobbs.
Watson, Dobbs,
Wicks, Watson, and Reed.
Reed. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. So, unfortunately, though, that one is a best ball. So now he's got to decide.
Yeah, no, he's in a rough spot.
So yeah, that's why I decided to go Jordan Love. I love Justin Herbert. I've got him in a few other leagues myself, so I didn't feel too bad about not getting him. And I have Kyler in one other league too. But Jordan Love, I didn't have any shares of. I did have one this offseason at the beginning, but I used Jordan Love in a package to acquire CeeDee Lamb in that league. So I didn't feel bad about trading away Love. But now I get another share of them. So I'm back in the saddle with him. All right. So moving on now, we like I said, we had third round reversal here. So Avdi was back on the clock and he took his second quarterback and Kyler Murray. I'm sure he was more than happy to have him fall in his lap. Had I looked at it a little more closely, maybe I would have just taken Kyler to piss him off because he has Marv, but I didn't. I don't try to purposely spite people in drafts just because of a stack coming up, I guess. Unless I know that I'm going to want to trade with them. So in this case, like I just went with the guy who I felt was best for me and my team. All right. Maybe later on in the 10th, 11th, 15th, 18th round, I would try something like that to sort of extract a little value out of someone. But at this point early on, I want to build my team around the guys that I want, you know?
Right. Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I like your selection. I like Jordan Love a little bit more than I do like Kyler. That being said, the fact that he's got Marvin Harrison to pair with Kyler Murray, that's real nice for him. It's real
Yeah,
nice.
I think it was a dream start for Havdi getting
Yes,
A
it was.
Rich and then Marv and Kyler. That is just an awesome start for the first 3 picks. After that, we had Ted Lasso grabbing Laporta, and then it was back to you, which you then made another move.
Yeah. So I had who I wanted to pick here already laid out. He was available. It was good value. And I got a little DM asking for a little trade request. So I kind of looked at it and played with it a little bit before I made my pick, and I ended up getting him to give me exactly what I wanted. So I traded back 4 spots with Crackcore, and by doing that, I acquired his 5th round pick as well, and I gave up my 10th. So I feel like I got a lot more value there, especially seeing how the People's Champ had just traded out of their spot with Havdi. Havdi was trading there to try and get Laporta. However, Laporta went to the next pick, and he ended up settling on London later on there. But yeah, I wanted to get some value out of it. I felt pretty good that I might be able to get my guy a little bit later in the round. So I made that deal. He wanted Dak, and
yeah, he wanted Dak because he had CD.
correct.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Right.
We made that deal. I felt extremely great about it after the fact, after the picks had been made.
Yeah.
So I still got my guy in Jaden Daniels, who statistically, his projection statistics are really close to Anthony Richardson's anyway. And I'm getting him in a 3rd round value or a mid-3rd round value as opposed to a 1st round. So happy about that. And then the 5th pick, we'll get there in a little bit. I was super stoked about that value as well. So it was a really good deal that worked out for me.
Yes. So after Crackor traded up to get Dak and the CD stack, we had a little bit of a surprise in Travis Kelce going at the 304. Now, I can't argue with the value Kelce brings to the table immediately. But at the age, it's Kelce I've been seeing go in the 5th, 6th, 7th round of startups this offseason. So maybe this just was a little bit more of a redraft mentality coming into the fold here.
I had him ranked 80th, Chris. I had him ranked 80th, and he got taken with the that's rough. The 4th pick.
Yeah. So it happens, and we weren't sad about it. We moved on. Next up was People's Champ, and he had done a deal with Havdi then, where he picked up a future first. Havdi got his 3rd and 5th rounder, I believe, and then People's Champs got both turn picks of the 4th and 5th. So basically, Havdi gave up a 1st to move up from his 412 to jump up to here, and then move back 4 spots in the 5th, which isn't much of a difference in value, but I do see a tier jump there from his 412 up to the 305, which he used to scoop up Drake London. Heavy mover up the boards this offseason, we all know. And, well, for Havdi's sake, hopefully he does get those extra targets.
Yes, because I know he was trading back into the 3rd to try and acquire Sammy Laporta, and he, of course, went the pick right after his own pick. Oh, look at that. I'm on the clock. So we'll get some
we got a pick, live pick here. You got 2 picks.
I got back-to-back picks. I'll make them real quick, too, because
okay.
He did not have them
talk a little while
slotted. So
okay, I'll let you concentrate on your picks. I'll go through the next.
Real fast.
Oh, okay.
Fast. So let's see.
You got them all queued up. That's good.
I do have them queued up, man. I do. So I'll take that one, and then I'll take that one.
There we go. Jake Ferguson and Tajay Spears off the board. Jake Ferguson, I heavily considered with my pick where I was at the 10:01, but I decided to go with the quarterback route there.
Yeah.
We'll get to that at the end.
Hey, you got five of them. Look at that.
What's that?
Five. You got five of them. Yeah.
I've got four. Derek Carr isn't
oh, that's
mine.
right. That's
Derek
someone
Carr's
else's
crack horse.
Either which way. So back to where I was with it, he ended up settling there for Drake London, which still, I mean, you gave up a future first. I felt like Rom really came away ahead in that deal. I mean, yes, he's passing on his third round pick, but he gets the 4-5 turn plus a future first. That's darn good. That's darn good in my opinion.
Yes, considering who now that we can look at it, considering who he ended up getting with those picks, we can take a look. I mean, it ended up Drake London and Brock Bowers for Kyle Pitts, Nico Collins, and a first. Okay. Yep. Now you can argue Kyle Pitts and Nico Collins straight up for Drake London and Brock Bowers is a pretty close deal straight up. I mean, maybe I'd throw a second on top of that to get Drake London, maybe. And that only, I honestly, I mean, Pitts and Bowers are pretty equally valued right now. Granted, Pitts has played in the NFL, Bowers hasn't yet, but then Drake London and Nico Collins are pretty close in value. I mean, I prefer London personally. So, I mean, I don't know. They're so close in value.
Well,
I definitely wouldn't be giving up first to acquire them.
Yeah, I would prefer Pitts between those two, even though Bowers has a few extra years or a few less years. I would much rather take Pitts with Kirk Cousins for the next year or two, followed by Michael Penix with a commitment to the passing game in Atlanta. So, and you look at who's throwing Brock Bowers the ball, Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. So,
I think the lesson
balanced, just straight up. Plus, Rom gets his 2025 first on top of it. So, total win there for Rom.
I think the lesson here learned from Havdi is that if you're going to give up a future first, which I highly am against in a startup doing, but there's certain cases where I would do it. For instance, I would have been willing to do it at the beginning of the draft if I could have acquired Mahomes. All right. To acquire something like that, where you'd have a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes quarterback room, is something that I would be willing to give up a future first for. All right. Sure. What Havdi was trying to do was acquire Sam Laporta, right? But he made the deal when it was still 3 picks away from there. My point is that if you're going to give up your future first, you better know who you're getting with that pick right there. So he was a little trigger happy on it, and I think he learned his lesson. Obviously, he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing generally. I think he just took a little chance there, and it kind of backfired on him. But his team's still looking pretty solid as we go down here. We'll see how his team is looking, and I think he'll be just fine. So anyway, then after London went off the board, we had Justin Herbert finally go. This is about a round later than Herbert normally goes, in the middle of the second here. I mean, I was just flabbergasted at Herbert falling this far, honestly. I mean, you had Ted Lasso pass on him to take Sam Laporta. Like, what are we doing here? Why would you take Sam Laporta over Justin Herbert? Why would you take Travis Kelce over Justin Herbert? I don't know. That's just my thoughts. I get it. It's tight end premium, but it's not like it's a 0.75 or full point tight end premium, which some leagues are, or a start 2 tight end league, which some leagues are. So yes, it is a little bit of a premium, but all it does is really give the tight ends, makes them somewhat valuable. And in the end, I just wouldn't have taken any tight ends over Justin Herbert. That's just
Yeah, I mean, there might be a little bit of hesitancy to invest higher draft capital in a quarterback that you know is going into less attempts this year. I don't know.
That's what we all think.
I'm not super high on Herbert right now until I see what Harbaugh's offense is actually going to translate to outside of speculation.
The way I look at it, though, is okay. Yes, we all anticipate Harbaugh throwing less. Sure. However, I mean, you're really putting the onus on the Chargers defense to say that. Like, yeah, the Chargers can go into a game plan thinking that they're going to run the ball X amount of times. But if they're trailing the Chiefs 28-10 at halftime, I think that Herbert's going to end up slinging the ball 40 times still.
That's
you
true.
know what I'm saying?
That's true.
So unless the Chargers defense is able to come out and be gangbusters like the Michigan defense was, they're not going to be running the ball 500 times this year. You know,
yeah.
These Chargers receivers are still going to get some targets. Herbert's still going to end up throwing the ball 600 times. All right. I'm just saying I'm playing devil's advocate here to the theory that Herbert is all of a sudden going to become Lamar Jackson here and run the ball a bunch more and throw the ball a bunch less.
Right.
Harbaugh has never had a quarterback with the talent of a Justin Herbert. Greg Roman has never had the quarterback with the talent of Justin Herbert. You know, you look at their quarterbacks that those two had when they've been together. They had Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, then Lamar Jackson. None of these guys had the kind of arm talent of a quarterback like Justin Herbert. Now, I do agree that some of their off-season moves bode a little more towards the run game in drafting a tackle at the 105 and then, you know, getting rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. But those two guys were old to begin with.
Yes.
All right. Those were kind of just smart general manager moves, in my opinion. They went ahead and drafted Ladd McConkey pretty early. So
and they got Rice,
like
and they got Cornelius Johnson. So they did bring in youthful receivers. They still have Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer there, but we'll see what they do. But yeah, you're right. They're old. They were aging receivers, and they come with a long, or let's just call it a massive injury baggage set. Okay, both of them have tons of injury problems. I don't know when the last time one of them played a full season is. So maybe never.
Right.
So I felt those moves were great. I just thought I would see a lot more aggression from LA in the draft when it came to acquiring some of those receivers. But that's neither here nor there. I understand your point. In fact, I've got Herbert ranked 15th. So to your point,
I just
going right around this spot in the last round.
Yeah, I have, like I said earlier, I have Justin Herbert shares in other leagues, and I have not been selling them. I mean, for one, there's no reason to, because he's done nothing but fall down the boards. So I'd be selling at a loss. But at the same time, I also can see how people are maybe just overemphasizing the run game with the Chargers and thinking that Herbert is going to just drastically fall off passing the ball. But anyway, let's move on from Justin Herbert. We get your pick in Jaden Daniels then, who you were targeting. Very exciting player out of LSU. And so I know you were happy to land that one.
Yep, absolutely. As long as he can learn how to slide, we'll be A-okay.
For sure. No, he is definitely a very polarizing player. You know, was his throwing last year at LSU the result of having Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas there, or was it just a perfect storm where you had a good thrower and you had two good wide receivers? I mean, I didn't hear too many people bring that argument up with Joe Burrow when he had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, that, oh, well, he was only good because he had two good wide receivers. You know, they were all over Joe Burrow. He went 1-on-1. So I think Jaden Daniels will be more than fine in Washington. I don't expect him to be a bust. I would look, if I'm looking at the bust candidates from these 5 or 6 quarterbacks, it more be down at the because I like Drake May as well.
Mhm.
But his situation starting off isn't as good looking as Jaden Daniels. So maybe he struggles. And then of course Bo Nix and Penix, they're in situations where, like Bo Nix, I know he was handpicked by Sean Payton, and he's an offensive genius. As much as I dislike the man, he is an offensive genius. And so if he handpicks somebody, he sees something there. And
Yeah.
so I am kind of on the Bo Nix bandwagon, but I definitely have faded Michael Penix. Some people have liked grabbing him because they see him being worth a future first immediately as soon as he gets the starting job in Atlanta. But who
Mhm.
knows when that actually happens? Like, what if Kirk Cousins wins the Super Bowl in Atlanta?
Right.
Like, they're not going to just walk away from him then, right? I mean, then Penix is going to have to get dealt somewhere.
Yeah.
Or,
Unless
I
Kurt
mean,
decides to walk away on top, right?
true, he could do that
You've
as
got the
well.
option at that point. You win a Super Bowl and you're older. You've got the option. Either you're coming back or you're riding off into the sunset with your Lombardi trophy and ring.
Yes.
So,
Yes. All right. So after you took Jaden Daniels, we had a little run of running backs. Again, we mentioned how the running backs are going earlier in this draft. We had
mhm.
ETN, Achan, and JT going. Then we had a little bit of a surprise in Brian Thomas going. I would say that was a few rounds early. And then it came to
Yeah,
me,
it was early.
and I was sitting there, and Trevor Lawrence is still on the board. And this is where I brought up earlier how some of this draft room, the sleeper rankings in this draft room got skewed a little
Yeah.
by the scoring system, because Trevor Lawrence was way down at 63. And I just found that appalling, because Trevor Lawrence has been getting drafted right with Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray and Jordan Love in just about all the other startups that I've done this year. And now I know that Lawrence had a little bit of an off year last season. However, I mean, the guy was banged up a lot and he played through it. So it was more of a situation, in my opinion, where Lawrence's value took a ding for playing through the injury, rather than like Justin Herbert got injured. Now he had an injury where he couldn't play literally, but Justin Herbert wasn't in those games, and had the injury been slightly less and he tried to play and sucked, then his value would have fallen because of his play. And so I just see that with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, the guy was the 101 in the real NFL, 101 in rookie drafts for us. He's got talent around him. I know they lost Ridley, but they brought in Brian Thomas. The talent's all still there for Lawrence. I just see a bounce back season easily for Lawrence. And so I was perplexed, because I really wanted to draft 2 wide receivers here at the
Yeah.
3-4 turn. I really wanted to just draft Jalen Waddle and Brandon Ayuk.
Oh,
That's who I wanted to
wow.
take.
Wow. That would have changed everything I did. But
And well, absolutely, it would have changed the whole rest of the draft here.
yeah.
Those are the 2 guys I really wanted to draft.
Yeah.
But I was able to find a trade partner where I was able to grab 2 picks for one. So I got a 5th and a 9th, which I like doing.
Yeah.
I did want to try and get a first for it in there somehow, but he wasn't willing to go there.
Good
So
for
I kind
him.
of settled.
Good
Go
for
ahead.
him. No, I was just saying good for him not coming off of it, because it's an intangible item right at this moment. So it's much easier to come off of that draft pick saying, yes, there's a guy I want right here, right now. So it's
Yes,
it's good discipline. We'll put it that way. Good discipline.
it was good discipline on his part. Yes. Yet I was still able to get what I want, and he was able to get what he wanted. Now, when I made the deal, I figured he was going to just draft Lawrence.
Huh.
But
No,
he
he
went ahead
traded
and
up
grabbed.
to get What do I have
He went,
Williams ranked or evaluated? 64th. He's
yeah, out of the,
KTC 64th. I
I
had him like
mean,
58.
he totally threw me for a loop drafting Kyron then. So
Yeah.
then I was back on the, well, gee, because I was giving up that pick. I was figuring, okay, I'll get one or the other. I'll get Waddle or Ayuk then, because I'll still have the 401. But he drafted Kyron, and I'm like,
Yeah.
really? And so it took me 5 seconds, all of 5 seconds, literally. I
Yeah.
just smashed Lawrence. I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm not messing around anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and so I did that. It was my third quarterback. I know that's, we only technically end up with 2 each week in our lineups. And really, I like to just go with strength and numbers at quarterback in best ball. But now having 3 stud quarterbacks, I mean, I can't go wrong really now at quarterback. And if I happen to grab more quarterbacks later on, I then had the opportunity to either trade Lawrence or Love to somebody who needs a
Right.
stud quarterback. So that's where I was looking at it, that I gave myself the freedom then to not be tied down by either Jordan Love or Trevor Lawrence, where I was like, nah, I really don't want to trade one of them. Now I'm okay trading one or the other, and
Yeah.
I won't be hurt that much.
No, great
So
idea.
then, yeah. So then that's where my process was there. I mean, there's a ton of wide receivers in the draft, so not getting Ayuk or Waddle isn't really going to sting me that much, as we see.
I was counting down those picks. I was counting down those picks, man, with all the value that was sitting there with some of the receivers. It's like, come on.
Oh yeah,
And
it was crazy.
Yeah.
But then the value was still there at the quarterback, and we saw Purdy go next, then Trey McBride, then Tua right away. So we had 3 quarterbacks go there in a little cluster. Then Saquon went at the 405. Then Dalton Kincaid, who I also did consider a little bit because I had Josh Allen, but in the end, I just decided I didn't want to go tight end.
Right.
And then the 2 guys that I had considered at the turn, Ayuk and Waddle, went.
Right.
Just before you. Oh no, you got Waddle. Sorry, I forgot you traded up. So were you going to go Ayuk? Had the guy taken Waddle?
I'm not 100% who I would have gone. Okay, so let me see what was available there.
Well, you could have
Ayuk
gone
was
Rome,
there.
Big Nico, maybe Flowers.
Nico, I
don't know that-
considered, but no, it was way too early for some of those guys. It was probably Ayuk or Waddle. Waddle, the value was just so wonderful there. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was great for Waddle to fall to your lap there.
Yeah, that was and Odunze was on my list, Rome Odunze, but I didn't want to draft 2 receivers right out the jump. So, or 2 rookie receivers out the jump. I had neighbors, and I wanted some established within 3 years receiver, right? I kind of fall in the wide receiver factory category for the team build I was looking at. That's kind of fallen this way. So the Waddle value was great. That was part of that pick swap I had done in the second, so it allowed me to jump up and get him a couple of picks earlier.
Yeah. And then we had the last quarterback, so to speak, before kind of a tier break in quarterbacks, in Jared Goff go off the board.
He's got
after that, then
too. He's got Goff, Gibbs, and Brown.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Yes, well, best ball, that's not a bad idea to go after. When the Lions score points, he's going to score points, and the Lions have a good offense. So
yes, they do.
It's not something I'd recommend to do with, say, the Giants offense or whatever. But when you're doing it with a top tier, top 5 elite offense, I don't mind doing something like that. Definitely not in best ball.
Yeah.
So then we had Odunze go, then Stephon Diggs. Diggs maybe a little early there, in my opinion.
Lot early. Don't be nice. That's a lot early. That's a lot early.
Ted Lasso must be from Houston as well.
He lived, well, no, I don't think he's actually in Houston. He might be in like Colorado, but
Oh, okay.
or Denver.
Well,
Denver, yeah, Denver, Colorado.
okay. All right. We got players from all over the place in this league.
That's it.
Love it. All right. Then People's Champ was back up. So he had grabbed Roma Dunze. Then he grabbed Kyle Pitts and Nico Collins. I like that turn there for him. Definitely made that trade worthwhile for Travis there. I think it was solid move.
I agree. That was a great turn from a value assessment, a ranking assessment, and for what he needed in his team, or not necessarily need, but a want. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. Then we had Josh Jacobs go, and you were back on the clock here at the 503.
Yeah, 503. And so I take Zay Flowers and get my stack. I'm pretty high on Zay Flowers. A rookie receiver that flashed going into his second year. I love that bet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the stack, like you said, it fell right into your lap there with Lamar. Next up, we had Pacheco go. Then Havdi settled on Bowers at tight end. Then we have the first defensive player go in this IDP format. Now we're using the just a little modified version of the IDP 1-2-3 scoring format that is the most popular one out there. Basically, the big thing is you get 6 points per sack, as well as 6 points for interception. And then you're getting a point per tackle, and then a few other points for things like passes defensed and quarterback hits. But the main thing is the 6 for the sacks. And I think that's where he jumped over onto Parsons here. Parsons is nice and young. I have not played in an IDP format, so I'm very interested to see how this plays out. I just know that personally, there's a ton of defensive players out there. And so I'm willing to wait on it, kind of see how the dust settles. And we'll see when I end up actually starting to take some IDP players. But he no doubt took probably the best player, I would say, in the format. So I don't know. You're going to see a lot of spike weeks from defensive players is what I'm getting at. There's not going to be a lot of consistency other than the middle linebackers that are tackle machines. You'll get those points consistently. But there's going to be, as we see, the first few guys taken were definitely sack specialists in Parsons. Will Anderson went the next round, TJ Watt the round after that. And so we see where the guys found the value in the position, at least from their perspective. And I can't blame him for trying. I mean, again, I've never played in a format like this, so we'll see how that pans out for them.
Yeah, I haven't either. I think actually everyone in this league has never played an IDP format. So, I mean, I had tons of people asking, so how does that work? When should we start looking? I was like, man, I know what I'm doing, but I'm not telling you what I'm doing because I don't want everybody to do what I'm doing. So I have a feeling you and I kind of see it the same way. And we'll leave it at that. But I'm not wasting I'm not going to say waste. That's not necessarily fair, but I'm not using a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick to go after a defensive player when there's so much offensive talent around, especially with some of the values that we've seen on this board in particular.
Yeah. So based on the scoring here, Parsons has scored well over 200 points all 3 of his previous seasons in this format, which basically puts him, in my opinion, somewhere around the kind of the mid to top receivers. I'm definitely not putting him up with the elite receivers, but scoring wise, this round, he does fit in with these other receivers, your Devontae Smiths, DK Metcalfs. And I know when you were going over the scoring with me, how to make it, that's where we wanted them to fit in. So I don't think that he was a reach, really, honestly, where he got picked. I mean, the position, those kind of defensive players, as you've seen, TJ Watt, he's almost 30 years old. Maybe he is 30. I don't know. But they tend to play longer, right? So it's not like the running back position where their shelf life is shorter. These sack artists do tend to play longer and last. So it could end up panning out well, having grabbed him early on. Again, we'll see. I do like the fact that, like, when we get to the end of this draft, rounds 20 through 30, it makes them more relevant.
Yes.
Okay. The previous startup we did, I mean, once you got to round 25 through 30, were just kind of brutal. I mean, we were picking up, backup running backs, fourth and fifth string running backs and wide receivers. Not that they're not important. But
UDFAs.
yeah, when you get when you're grabbing the UDFAs, it's not as exciting as this one I foresee becoming with the IDP thrown into the mix.
Right.
So the picks in round 20s, in the 20s, are going to be more exciting, I think, in this draft because of that. And I like that.
Agree. I agree. There'll be
so-
more offensive talent pushed up, and there'll be plenty of defensive talent in that
Yeah,
pool.
yeah. All right. So after Parsons, then we went Devontae Smith. We had DK went. I was a little disappointed. I was hoping DK would fall to me, but he didn't. And I settled, as we see. Andrews went. Then I was up, and I got Michael Pittman. More than happy with that pick.
Great
spot
too, man. Into the fifth round, to nab Pittman's a tremendous grab.
Yeah, I mean, I was considering Pittman even when I was looking at Ayuk and Waddle. So, I mean, for Pittman to fall that far, I liked Ayuk and Waddle over Pittman, but I mean, he was a similar value to me.
Right.
Then Rachaad White went, and then of course I was able to grab two receivers at the turn to get my solid build going that I like. DJ Moore and George Pickens, both somewhat young and producing type wide receivers. DJ Moore a little older now. And of course he's in that crowded receiver room in Chicago. That's why he fell a little bit, considering the fact that he was the sixth highest scoring wide receiver last year. To get him down this far, I like that. I know that you have Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze there, but the fact is Caleb's going to end up having to throw a lot this year. And so I see a lot of targets going out there. I don't expect DJ Moore to be the sixth highest scoring wide receiver this year, but if he can finish top 15, I'll take it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Even top 20 where I drafted him. I mean, I drafted him as probably, it looks like, somewhere around the 20th receiver off the board. So, I mean, he's only 27 years old. He's just coming into the prime. He's finally got a good offense. He finally had a good quarterback last year. Well, I don't know if I'd say a good quarterback in Justin Fields, but he finally had a quarterback that could get him the ball. And I think Caleb Williams is a better thrower of the football than Fields. And though Caleb has his warts, he's going to put up stats in the end. So, then I went with George Pickens. Don't love Pickens' offensive coordinator, but he lost Deontay Johnson. So,
and upgraded his quarterback.
What's that?
And upgraded his quarterback.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, anything was an upgrade for Pickens at quarterback. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Now to move along, because I do actually have to work today. So we got about maybe 10 more minutes here. So we got to speed through this to get caught up to where we're at. Why don't we everybody can see who the picks were. Why don't we go right to your next pick, Matt? You were at the 6-10, and you were able to grab T. Higgins and then followed up with JSN. Why don't you?
Yeah. So again, I'm looking heavy receivers here. I'm looking for young receivers and situations. Now, T. Higgins' contract situation with the Cincinnati Bengals is not ideal right now. That being said, he's going to play next year, whether it's in a Cincy uniform or in a different uniform. If it's a different uniform, it's probably going to be a better situation for him statistically. Maybe not right out the gates, but by the end of the year. If it's in a Cincy uniform, I know what he'll put up, and I'm fine with that production here in the 6th round there. So, but then to be able to turn JSN, I was super excited about that. Super happy about the JSN with the new offensive set that's coming in. There's going to be a lot more spreading around of the ball, which positively helps him and Gino. So I was happy about that pick as well. Really, I wanted to grab Tank Dell or Jonathan Brooks between these two picks, but they went early in the 6th.
Yes.
So that's, just pivoting again and taking more receiver value here.
Yep, that's the way you got to do it in a startup. You got to be prepared to pivot, especially in this area. Rounds, in my opinion, round like the middle of the 5th through round, say 8 or 9. You have to be ready. You have to be having a contingency plan. You can't be panicking in this tier from rounds 5 through 8, because that's what kills you. That's when you end up wasting future draft capital to go and get your guy, when in reality all of these guys are very similar production profile. They all score about 200 to 225 points. They're all somewhat younger, okay, except for a few of the wide receivers in this area, like the heavy point producers like Mike Evans and Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, which are all fine to grab as well. But you really don't want to be using for future draft capital to just gain a similar style player.
Right.
That's where you kill yourself. I mean, in this range, this is where I look to trade back to, like, if I have a 6, then I can trade back to an 8th and get something for it. I do that all day, because in my opinion, there's certain guys that I want or prefer over others, but in the end, this is just the startup, and I'm looking to accumulate value anywhere I can. Because again, we're going to be done with this draft whenever, in a week, maybe, I don't know, a few days, who knows, but we're still going to have the whole rest of the summer to sit and stare at these teams. I'm sure there's going to be a couple of trades made.
I hope so. Gosh, I hope so. We've had a lot of deals in this draft so far, so I hope that's a little indication of what's to come. So we'll see if more teams kind of drive the activity. Yeah,
I see with the activity we've had so far, I foresee a good league, good, healthy trading league, and I'm all for that. Yeah. Now, to go to the end of the beginning, back to my turn. I'll just go through the picks that I've made, and then you can finish up with yours. So it was at my turn, and though I didn't want to grab running back, Derrick Henry was sitting there on the board, and he had just fallen and fallen and fallen. And again, in a 0.25 per carry league, we know Henry is going to get the ball in Baltimore. Yeah. I mean, Henry is an outlier to the normal running back. I know he's 30 years old, but I think he's as indestructible as they come, and the guy can play till 30. He's 35 if he wants. I mean, I think he is going to stop playing when he wants to stop playing. That's how I look at it. This guy can put up 1,200 yards and double-digit touchdowns for the next 2 seasons in Baltimore, and I don't think anybody would be shocked at that. So I think I got a good running back there who, I mean, for instance, DeAndre Swift went right before Henry, right? I would not be shocked if Derrick Henry outlasts DeAndre Swift in the NFL. And he's 5 years older.
Yeah, it's very possible, because Swift's dealt with some injuries. He's bounced around the league a little bit. He's now on his 3rd team. And he's going into a situation where they're clearly looking to throw the football. So,
yes. Yeah.
So if Henry lasts you 3 years, I think it's already a better pick.
Yeah.
He lasts you 2. If you get 2 quality years this year and next, it's a better pick.
It's worth it for a 7th rounder. I mean, when you take in consideration the other guys that are going here too, I mean, in this area you're looking at, it's Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Ramondre Stevenson, and David Montgomery, Nick Chubb. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all the older producing running backs right
Yep.
now that you'd be looking at. And I don't know. Personally, I love watching Henry play, so it doesn't hurt.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Then I went ahead and grabbed my stack with Jordan Love in Jaden Reed. I highly considered taking Deebo Samuel there with that pick. It was hard between the two. And then I ended up trading up, which I normally do not do, but I got a value deal where I wasn't giving up a whole lot of value. And so I was able to grab Deebo a few picks later. And then to finish off my picks that I have, my most recent selection was Aaron Rodgers. And so we all know how old Aaron Rodgers is, but he says he wants to play a couple more seasons. So we're looking at another Brady situation here where we really don't know when the guy's going to retire. So yeah, it's sort of a gamble, but he's my fourth quarterback at this point. And there's only, at that time, there was only 5 starting quarterbacks left on the board. So we'll see how the quarterbacks get drafted here the rest of the way. You want to finish up talking on your last 2 selections there of Bryce Young and well, that was it.
Well, for that round, yeah. So I took Bryce Young here. I got great value on him, where he was, and based on what followed him directly, I am certainly glad I decided to pull the trigger there, because 3 quarterbacks went right behind him, and then not too further down the road, another 4. So wise choice. When it came to the 9-3 here, I was going to draft David Njoku. I needed a tight end. The value was there. The ranking aligned with where I was picking. So I was ready to fire that off. But while I was waiting to fire that pick, I noted, okay, in the 10th round, there's a couple of guys I'd love to get in on here, and I don't want to go that long without picking. So I wanted to try to get a deal. So I put a couple of trades out there, and I actually ended up doing both deals. So
yes, you did. You ended up making out on this.
I got the 1004 for my 19-3 and a future 5th round pick, 2025 5th round pick. But that wasn't even close to as bad as the other one. Now this one I was trying to get a 10th round pick, and he offered me his 10th, 11th, and 12th for my 9-3.
Yeah, absolutely. Something
I gotta take that
all day long.
It's not. Look, the truth of the matter is we negotiated back and forth, and the deals we were trying to negotiate were way better than what he finally offered me. I don't know why that happened, but he did. I think he just got very desperate for that player, and he gave me 3 picks.
And that goes back. Yeah, and that goes right back to not getting too set on having to get your guy here in a startup. Like I said, I mean, we got 2 more months to negotiate trades. If you don't get your guy that you really want in the startup, just get the value that you can right here and now, and then try and trade for him later. I mean, and that's part of why I play in multiple leagues, so that, like I said earlier, I wanted DK Metcalf to fall to me at where I ended up taking Pittman. But I mean, so Reggie Miller's 2-inchers got him. I have DK in 5 other leagues.
Yeah,
it's going to be okay. I'm still going to celebrate when DK Metcalf scores a touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So
I go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say the first 2 picks I had because of those deals, which we got to see live, were the Ferguson and Tajee Spears, and then we saw Najee Harris come off here in the last few minutes. So
I like the Najee Harris pick. I've traded for him in 2 leagues this offseason. And that was prior to him with the big announcement of losing 15 pounds. So
yeah. Now, do you value him or Warren in a dynasty startup? Who do you value more, Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren?
In a startup?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I would take Najee just because of their style of play and how it's going to correlate to Arthur Smith. Okay. But that's if I'm talking straight up. If I'm talking at cost, I'll take Jaylen Warren all day, because Jalen Warren is going to go obviously later than Najee Harris here. And I'll be happy with either of those guys.
Okay.
All right. So, yes, like I said, I have traded for Najee Harris in a couple other leagues. And temporarily, for the time being, I do like him slightly better. And that's strictly only because I think that Najee will get the goal line looks, right?
Okay.
Now, if one of them gets hurt at all during this season, the other is going to benefit.
Clearly,
right? They're going to jump up to 60 to 70% of the touches in any of those given weeks. So I love that Pittsburgh backfield. I love targeting it in these startups this offseason. I did get Warren in a previous one. And so, I like them both, to be honest. But yeah, if you're going to ask me a strategy on if I'm just going to take one of them, I would probably wait and grab the second guy. It's kind of like with the Packers wide receivers. I ended up taking Jaden Reed there, but I would have been more than happy just waiting and getting the last guy that gets drafted, so to speak, because you don't really know who's the better of the two.
That's true. I mean, I guess you could get into similar discussions with Zach Moss or Chase Brown, Tajee Spears,
exactly.
and Tony Pollard,
exactly
Andrew Miller, Alvin Kamara. There's lots of those.
Right.
I will say this: I am happy to take the younger pieces, most of the time, of those backfield duos, because
the younger and the cheaper, and the cheaper piece. Yeah.
Right.
Because,
like you said, they're cheap, and if injury happens, well, now you got an RB1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Like you brought up Kendre Miller and Alvin Kamara, right? Kendre Miller is going to get some touches. All right. More so than he did last season. All right. Early on. And then when Kamara does get hurt, because it's likely that he does go down at some point this season, whether it's just for a game or 5, Kendre Miller is going to benefit from that. All right.
Yep.
Now there is that slight 5% chance that Kamara plays all 17 games, sure. But we're talking about the running back position. And I think when I looked it up last year, there were only 7 or 8 running backs that actually played all 17 games of the starting running backs. Like if you look at the 32 top guys on each team's roster, there were only 7 or 8 that played all 17 games last year. So it just goes to show, I mean, there's death, taxes, and football players getting injured. So
that's it.
It happens. And so you have to prepare for it. You can't get upset when your guy gets hurt and be like, oh, that's it. I'm done. That's why I don't like playing redraft, because in redraft, that happens to one of your first 3-round picks, and you're pretty much done. It's a lot harder to get trades done in redraft because you don't have these draft picks. You don't have youth to take into consideration when you're trying to make trades. That gets into the play too. In redraft, it's one and done. It's this year. There's going to be one winner and one loser to the trade. Or maybe you both lose. Because there's only one winner each year. In Dynasty, more trades can be win-win. And that's why I love it. And that's why I keep playing it. So do you have anything else to add before we get out of here, Matt?
Not really, man. Looking forward to these next couple of rounds. I like having 2 picks in each. That makes it more fun because I got some catching up to do on some running backs. But
me too.
I could end up just taking a ton of receivers, man. I got 1 running back, only need 1 more. So,
I hear you. I hear you. All right. Well, we'll see how the rest of this turns out, and maybe next week we'll jump back on this and give you a peek at how we finish this draft up. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, we love you, our viewers. Please join us again in the Birdhouse. Peace.